In 1947, you had the Kenneth Arnold, you had Roswell, you had the Aztec crash. These are all back to back within the same year.
No, the Aztec hoax was 1948.
Was that 48?
Yes.
Oh, and you think it was
March
a hoax?
25th, 1948.
And did you say hoax? You think it's a hoax?
Absolutely, it's a hoax.
Really? Huh. Why do you think that is?
Because the original story came from two con men who were eventually convicted of fraud. The story shifted around. The people who lived in Aztec at the time, most of them don't remember any events like that. The El Paso natural gas pipeline that was supposedly being built there in 48 wasn't started until 1949. There's all kinds of reasons not to believe the Aztec case to be authentic. I know my pal Stan Friedman will argue that point with me, but
yeah.
But Stan would be wrong on that.
Well, have you read the book by Scott and Susan Ramsey?
Of course, I've read the book by Scott and Ruth. Name one witness that you can go and interview today.
Well, I mean, that's a good point, but I think that they did a pretty good job debating the issue with the pipeline and the timing, saying, that this road was not there at that time.
Trivia. You've got absolutely no witnesses. Nolan's story came about after he got in contact with, what's-his-face, Lear. I want to say Bill Lear, but he's the guy that invented the jet. It's his son, John Lear, I think it is.
Well, yeah.
And Nolan didn't tell the story until after John Lear had clued him in onto the Aztec case.
Well, let's back up. And what's your take on the actual story? What's the classic story of what the Aztec case is?
Well, they found a crashed flying saucer on a mesa outside of Aztec, New Mexico. It was surrounded by the military. They found a hole in a porthole, pushed a rod through it, managed to open up the craft, and found the bodies of 16 alien creatures who were dressed in 1890 clothing, but they all had perfect teeth, and they were all perfect humans except they were smaller than humans. They were humans, but they were smaller than the average in the United States.
Average adult, sure.
Yeah, thank you. There was a great investigation. Dr. G led an investigation of 1700 scientists researching this. Dr. G turned out to be a TV repairman.
Well, see, I thought he debunked that in the book.
No, they don't debunk that. They ignore it, and they belittle J.P. Cain, who came up with that information, but they really don't debunk it. They have absolutely nothing to ground this on. It goes back to the story told by Leo Gibraltar and Gebauer and what's his face? The other guy.
Well, you had the oil
that guy,
prospector,
the oil guy.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't think of his name.
Whose name escapes me, and I don't know why.
But right, so you had this a prospector, I guess, and he had this device. I forget what it's called, but it was
Doodlebug.
Yes. And Doodlebug was
put together from World War II surplus radio parts.
Right, but apparently, I mean, he had contracts with the government, and he had a number of clients that stuck with him, and he made money
and
because
they got sued by them for fraud.
Well, but
but he got sued by him for fraud.
But I don't think it was a class action suit, was it?
I don't think it was class action.
Because he still had a number of clients that were still happy. I mean, he made some people rich.
No, he didn't. He didn't make anybody rich except himself. And then he died intestate, poor, broke.
All right, I'm going to have to go back and review this.
Well, take a look at an article done by Mike McClellan in UFO Universe magazine in the mid-1960s.
Mm-hmm.
Take a look at the story written by J.P. Cain, which Scott Ramsey and everybody belittles because Cain was a wannabe and he was mad because he wasn't involved in this thing. But read the story. It was published in True magazine in 1952.
Right. Well,
take a look at the original story that came from what's his face. Oh my God, my brain has just died on this.
That's right. Well, J.P. Cain, as a journalist, he approached Khan, right? And I'm sorry. I mean, now I'm confusing it. Yeah. So you have J.P. Khan.
Yes, he was a reporter.
He was a reporter.
Well, it's actually probably a stringer for the San Francisco Chronicle.
Mm-hmm.
And he approached the guy that wrote the book Behind the Flying Saucer, Scully.
Scully, yes. Mm-hmm.
Should have remembered that because we were talking about the
X-Files, exactly.
Yeah. He approached Scully and talked to him. He talked to Silas Newton. Was the other guy?
That's it, Silas. Yes.
And
it sounds like a villain's name, really does.
And Silas Newton had all these little bits of debris that he supposedly had.
Mm-hmm.
Kane actually switched one of the discs that he had made with one that Newton had to have it analyzed. Turned out to be poor grade aluminum. I think Kane thoroughly debunked the story.
Well,
go back and read Scully's first articles as they appeared in Variety. The first stories about the Aztec wasn't even mentioned in the first stories.
Well, the argument that they made was that Kane approached Scully, and Scully said, "No, I'm not going to give you the scoop on the story. I'm not going to give you my sources." Kane also approached Silas, thank you, and we'll get that right.
Silo, we don't know. Silas. It was just out there.
Anyway. Yeah, and they said, no, we're not going to give you what you want. So he got angry and vindictive and wrote this story trying to debunk the whole thing. And the doodlebug, they one of the points that the Ramseys make is that in the court case, when they are taken to court by, was it Kane or who do you know?
No, Kane had nothing to do with it.
Kane had nothing to do with it. Okay.
It was one of the investors.
One of the investors. Okay.
Don't forget this. Don't forget the what was it? The series of nines. Everything related to 9. The UFO was 99 feet long.
Yeah.
And going, oh yeah, what the hell? You got an alien race, and they've got a base 10 numerical system.
Well, they were trying to make Silas look like a bad guy, right? So they're saying that his doodlebug machine, it's a fraud. And you can't find oil or water with it or what have you. But apparently in the court, they had brought not his actual doodlebug machine, but another one. And that was the Ramseys' argument. Like, they won a court case based on imitative evidence and not the actual device.
How many of these problems do we allow them before we say this is a load of crap?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's in life there are coincidences.
You've got this guy. They quote this sheriff's deputy named Cuba, Hispanic police officer in 1948. They quote it as if they talked to the guy, and they didn't. They don't know. They talked to us like his second cousin. You go to Aztec. You talk to the people who were there. Marty Shriver was a guy who was in high school in 1948 in Aztec. And there's stuff on my blog. Type in Monty Shriver in the search engine, and you'll find a couple of stories by him about this whole thing, and he lays the argument out much better than I can here on the radio. You've got Mike McClellan, who researched the thing in the mid-1970s, I should say the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
Coral Lorenzen looked into it and talked to the sheriff, the guy who was the sheriff in 1948, and said it never happened. How many of these people do you have to go to before you say, maybe this thing is a hoax?
Well, okay,
if you go to Roswell, you can find newspaper articles about Roswell. You go to Aztec, there's nothing. You can't find a newspaper clipping about some kind of sighting in the area. One of the guys they source in there, his original story was appeared in the newspaper, and he was talking about how he was a CIA agent, for God's sakes. And he was assigned to the base in Roswell.
So what was Scully's motivation for writing a book about, or including this story in his book?
It was a bestseller. His motivation, he was told this story, and he thinks this is a great story. I'm going to write the book.
So what does that say about the rest of the stories in his book?
Among others, have said that they don't believe Scully was involved in this. He just learned of this story from Newton and Gebauer and wrote the book.
Well, what does that say about the credibility of his journalistic writing and the other stories?
He wrote for Variety, for God's sake. He did gossip column type things. If you go and read the original story, he's talking about the little men, and he said, and he makes some quote about some guy who apparently had pygmies in his act or something. I mean, the story is written. The original story is very tongue in cheek. And then the next thing you know, he's got the book coming out with this supposedly alleged story. You got Gebauer, who supposedly headed 1,700 scientist. I don't think he ever saw a scientist. He has a degree. He may have had a degree in electrical engineering. He ran a TV repair shop.
Well, I agree with you that the supposed Dr. G, who was like an informant, was supposed to be a conglomeration of multiple scientists, and Dr. G was the word that they used to represent all these anonymous people. I think that does kind of sound suspicious right off the bat. I think it seems like a good scapegoat. So I would definitely give you that. But now I'm really interested. Now I have to go back and reread it on all this.
As well, you should.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, sure. Yeah. And you know what? This brings up another great point, too, because we were talking about these MUFON symposiums and how I think it's really healthy to have debates and be comfortable with, hey, I believe this, you believe that, let's talk about it. Why don't they have debates at these, UFO cons and events?
You'd have to talk to the people hosting the programs.
If you like today's content, please like and subscribe down below. And until next time, thank you again, and live in the mystery.